Oh yes, soak my feet, bitch, and then cut the toenails, okay?
This is a marvellous thing going on over here.
Look at pinchers.
Those scissors are too chunky, aren't they, to get out?
Well, they're not now.
Do you want to go to bed?
I think we're probably not settled enough to sleep. It's like that. I'm sure if we all went to bed and closed our eyes, we would go to sleep.
Anthea, have you ever had a pigeon on that shoulder?
No.
Have you had a parrot on that shoulder?
No.
Open your mouth. But you've had a cockatoo in there.
That's a good one.
I'm going to ask you once. Stay away from her.
Or what?
Here are tonight's lottery results. In the National Lottery draw, the 6 winning numbers are confirmed as 2, 4, 12, 21, 36, 37, and the bonus is 46. Early indications show there are 5 lucky jackpot winners, each winning an unconfirmed £1.3 million. The winning numbers in the Lottery Extra draw are 8, 15, 17, 24, 36, 48. Initial reports show there are no winners tonight, which means the jackpot for the next draw has grown to an estimated £5.1 million. The National Lottery Thunderball numbers are confirmed as 8, 16, 18, 26, 33, and the Thunderball is number 10.
A respectable man.
I would like to thank everyone who has expressed their sympathy following my wife's death.
Devoted to his wife.
Mrs. Dupin had a history of depression.
A personal tragedy.
The woman that shot herself is obviously a suicide.
Or an act of depravity.
I think there's a question mark over the time of death.
Amanda Burton.
Don't patronise me.
New Crime Doubles.
Someone on your investigation is trying to undermine me.
Silent Witness, Monday the 19th of March on BBC One.
The news and sport now on BBC One with Sarah Montague and Matt Smith.
The chief vet admits surprise at how quickly foot and mouth disease has spread. Some farmers claim agriculture officials cannot cope. Racing goes ahead, but even the Queen Mother must take precautions. And a week after the BBC bomb, police say they've got fresh evidence. Good evening. The government's chief vet, Jim Scudamore, has admitted he's surprised at the speed and scale of the foot and mouth outbreak. As yet more cases have been confirmed across the country, some farmers are warning the government must speed up the destruction of livestock that could be infected. They claim that in some cases agriculture officials have taken days to burn carcasses, delays that could mean the disease spreads further. Another 12 cases were confirmed by the Ministry of Agriculture today. They were on farms in Dumfries, Cumbria, Durham, Anglesey and Devon. It brings the total number of cases to 139. 82,000 animals have now been slaughtered.
They were scrubbing down in another rural community in the West Country today as foot and mouth disease tightened its grip on Britain's countryside. The ban on animal movement was supposed to put a stop to new cases of foot and mouth disease by now. That makes outbreaks like the one confirmed here today at Venny Tedburn in Devon all the more serious. The chief vet says he's been taken by surprise by how far and fast the disease has spread.
I think the scale of the outbreak and the extent of the movements is what is quite surprising, is the number of animals that have moved up and down the country through markets, dealers. We now have a very good picture of where movements have been going on and the extent of them. So it got into sheep and it's been transmitted within 2 weeks around the whole country.
100,000 animals have been slaughtered so far or earmarked for slaughter. Tens of thousands have been burned, but as more animals are killed, the government's proving unable to dispose of them quickly enough. Farmers' leaders in southwest England say carcasses are being allowed to pile up in the fields.
Magpies, crows, foxes or whatever
can be going around picking on these, pecking at them, picking meat off them. We've got to be blunt about this and taking it around onto other farms. And that is very seriously. And if that is what is spreading it, we're never going to stop it at the moment until they get this carcass problem sorted out.
There is another way of getting rid of the grim harvest of slaughtered livestock. The government is getting through the backlog of carcasses by boiling them down at this rendering plant in Widnes in Cheshire. Ministers say there's plenty of spare capacity and this way of disposing of animals is less distressing for farmers. From today, farmers are applying for new licences available on the internet, allowing them to move animals short distances on their own property. Some livestock are stranded in fields where their food is exhausted. For ewes, time is running out if they're to get back to the farm for lambing.
It's no good saying we'll try and unwind it stage by stage when all these animal welfare implications are on us now. Lambing's upon us, calving's upon us, farrowing's upon us, and they need answers, and they need answers in the next few days.
It has been simply one thing after another in recent months.
In Somerset, the plight of farmers was recognised today in a service in Wells Cathedral. Prayers were offered for an early end to the disease that's blighting the British countryside. Here at the Ministry of Defence, they were expecting the number of foot and mouth cases to have been tailing off by now. But not only do the cases keep coming, but the government's chief veterinary advisor has said that he has found the whole thing has taken him by surprise. They're ominous developments as the foot and mouth crisis enters its third week.
Robert, when will we know if the disease has peaked?
Well, it's really very difficult to say, and it's partly the case that we know that the foot and mouth virus takes 14 days to incubate and come through in symptoms in animals. But having said that, that period has now been exceeded as far as the ban on animal movements is concerned, and we're still seeing cases coming up, and it still doesn't appear to have peaked. That makes it very difficult to say when the peak is likely to be reached, and I think that it's going to make people less inclined to make that prediction.
We're hearing today of farmers who are warning that the government's not keeping up with the spread of the disease. How widespread are those fears?
Well, they've been voiced particularly in parts of the country like Devon, where there have been 20 cases in that county, where there's a greater concentration of carcasses building up on farms. And where they're building up in fields, there is concern that that could be helping to spread the disease, and also that it's a sign that the government's simply not managing to cope with the disease and to cope with the task of disposing those carcasses. But the government's pointed out that once an animal is dead, it's much less likely to spread the disease, and the chief veterinary officer has maintained that he's still confident of containing the disease. He says that he thinks that it'll probably go on for some time. Part of the difficulty is that some sheep who have it, it's very difficult to tell that they've got it because it could just amount to small lesions in the mouth, small wounds inside the mouth. And the NFU is particularly concerned about all the cases that could still be out there, and they say they are desperately worried about that.
Robert Piggott, thank you very much. Police investigating the bombing of BBC Television Centre say they've discovered fragments of containers which they believe housed the explosives. The containers are similar to ones used by the real IRA in a bombing campaign in Northern Ireland. Tonight, police returned to the scene of the bombing in West London to question motorists who may have seen the bomb being planted exactly a week ago.
Almost a week after the bomb exploded, Scotland Yard's push for witnesses continued.
Thanks for stopping. Could you tell me, would you have been travelling through this road?
Detectives don't know where the two terrorists went after they left the taxi here. And tonight, the police revealed that the homemade high explosives were packed into a plastic container like this, which can hold up to 80 pounds. Bits were recovered over a wide area after the explosion. Irish dissident terrorists have used this type of container before, and senior Scotland Yard officers said they're used by the real IRA.
I am as certain as it can be that we are here seeing Irish dissident Republican terrorists, members of RARA, and that they could well be here in London or in South East England.
The anti-terrorist branch believes the real IRA are running parallel campaigns in Ireland and London. But the police are not sure how big the bomb was that exploded outside the BBC. And intelligence hasn't established yet whether the bomb was made here in London or transported over from Northern Ireland. Last June, the Belfast to Dublin railway line was blown up at Newry. A blue plastic container filled with explosives was found concealed nearby. Further proof for the anti-terrorist branch here. Earlier today, the police staged another reconstruction. A taxi, similar to the one used in the bombing, was bought at this breaker's yard in Edmonton, North London, and driven out by a man with an Irish accent. The police don't know where he went. That's until the taxi arrived at the BBC. Stephen Cape, BBC News at Television Centre.
A police helicopter and divers have been called in to help search for a 4-year-old boy who's been missing from home for more than 12 hours. Luke Gargan from Saltcoats in Ayrshire was reported missing by his mother. She found his bed empty at about 7:20 this morning.
Police in Strathclyde say this is a missing persons inquiry, and as the hours pass, they're becoming increasingly concerned for the safety of Luke Gargan. 4-year-old Luke was reported missing by his mother at breakfast time. She said he was in bed when she checked on him just after 5 this morning. All day, police have been knocking on doors around Luke's home at Saltcoats in Ayrshire, and they've made this appeal.
What the public can do to help us is search the environs of their home, their garden sheds, their garages, huts, then the vicinity of bins, areas, anywhere that they think that Luke could have gone and perhaps curled up and gone to sleep.
The police brought in a helicopter as their search intensified. Meanwhile, a car was taken away from Luke's house for forensic examination. Neighbours have been helping to look for him.
Everybody was helping. Everybody in the street came out and went searching. Men, women, kids, we all went searching everywhere.
The hunt is still focused on the immediate area, particularly open spaces. Everyone in this community just wants Luke Gargan to be found safe. June Kelly, BBC News.
More than 450 passengers and crew remain stranded at Manchester Airport tonight after their Pakistan Airways plane was grounded by a bomb threat claimed to be from an Islamic extremist group. The Boeing 747, which was heading for New York, had landed at Manchester to refuel. The plane was parked in a remote corner of the airfield, but has now been allowed to return to the terminal for further investigation. The rest of the airport is operating normally. Japan's Prime Minister Yoshihiro Mori has made it clear he will soon leave office. He's met senior members of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party to plan early elections for a new leader. There's been mounting pressure on Mr Mori to resign. One of his own ministers admitted this week that the country's finances were close to collapse.
Mr Mori arrived for a late-night meeting with party bosses, knowing his fight to stay in power was over. Calls for his resignation were overwhelming, and now his own party was putting in the knife. The statement from the party's Secretary-General was deliberately vague, but Japan is now looking for a new leader.
He told us that as party leader, he well recognised that people's trust was damaged after the series of scandals.
Mr Mori was seen as a political dinosaur incapable of tackling the country's fundamental economic problems. And still, the Japanese have not seen the last of their most unpopular Prime Minister since the war. He wants to stay on for another month to meet the American and Russian presidents. The political crisis comes just as Japan is lurching back into recession. The world's second largest economy is on a downward spiral. Stock prices are at their lowest level for 15 years. The markets will be happy Mr Mori's going, even though it could mean a long period of political confusion. Mr Mori never let the stress of high office get to him, but while he played, the administration lurched from one scandal to the next. He infuriated the public by remaining on the golf course after being told a Japanese schoolboat had been rammed by an American nuclear submarine.
The Prime Minister's residence here has had 10 occupants in just over 10 years, and none has left much of a mark. But the Japanese people are now demanding more of their politicians, and the search is on for a Prime Minister with real leadership abilities and with some vision for the future. Charles Scanlon, BBC News, Tokyo.
Now with news of all today's sport, here's Matt Smith.
Thank you very much, Sarah. In a few hours' time, England's cricketers should have squared the series in Sri Lanka. After another eventful day's play in Kandy, they'll resume their second innings on 91 for 4, needing another 70 runs to win the second test.
A tranquil setting for an acrimonious game which continues to be bedevilled by dubious umpiring. England's turn to feel aggrieved as BC Koure denied them the early wickets they craved. The upshot was a Sri Lankan revival led by Sangakkara, which could yet prove hugely significant. He and the reprieved Dharmasena boldly led their side out of their perilous overnight predicament, and England were fretting by the time Sangakkara suffered a rush of overconfidence.
He's got him this time.
Eventually, Dharmasena followed for another half-century, expertly snaffled by Graham Hick. But by the time Charminder Vas holed out, the home side had the sort of lead, 160, which gave them more than a chance. And it began to look more than that when first Mike Atherton fell to Vas for the 4th time in the series. And then Mr Koure accounted for Trescothick with his umpteenth dodgy decision. Mr Koure today announced his international umpiring retirement. The hip-hip hoorays from England will amount to more than 3. Nonetheless, Graham Thorpe bravely counter-attacked to renew England's momentum, and he'd taken them over halfway to their target when he perished for 46. Nasser Hussain followed soon after, leaving his side with 70 to get and 6 wickets left. With unfathomable umpiring to take into consideration, it's a tantalising, unresolved equation. Kevin Geary, BBC News.
Football, and there were 2 FA Cup quarter-finals and 1 Premiership game played today. Plenty of goals, plenty of drama, and it's all on Match of the Day, right after the news, so if you can bear the suspense, you'd better look away now. It was the same story in Scotland. 2 quarter-finals played, both featured on Sports Scene in Scotland after the news, so it's avert your eyes time again.
Lee Clark found himself in space.
Have moved another step closer to the Premiership. They beat relegation candidates Queen's Park Rangers 2-0 with goals from Louis Sahar and Lee Clark. A Darren Purse penalty and an Andre Johnson strike secured all 3 points for Birmingham. Against Crewe, they move up to 3rd, level on points with 2nd-placed Bolton. But West Brom's promotion hopes took a knock when they went down 2-1 to Sheffield Wednesday. Andy Booth, back from his loan spell at Tottenham, grabbed the 63rd minute winner. Britain has won its 2nd medal at the World Indoor Athletics Championship in Lisbon. Another silver. Christian Malcolm came 2nd in the 200 metres. Bidding to become the first Briton to win the event since John Regis in 1989, Malcolm was closed down by the American Sean Crawford on the 2nd bend, and the Welshman had to be content with silver ahead of Holland's Patrick van Balcom in 3rd. Rugby League and the holders Leeds have joined St Helens in the draw for the semi-finals of the Silk Cut Challenge Cup. Leeds were 10-0 down at Hull early on, but came back to win by 20 points to 18.
Hull were out for revenge over Leeds, who beat them at the same stage last season, and they got the perfect start with 2 early tries. First, Richard Horne dived over wide on the left, and then Tony Smith had the easiest of scores. Hull were well on top, but a 10-point lead became an 8-point deficit as Carl Pratt and Bradley Clyde got to work for the Rhinos. Both scored 2 tries as the Hull defence was breached again and again. With time running out in a pulsating cup tie, Chris Smith's first try for Hull reduced the deficit to just 2 points. Leeds teenage winger Mark Calderwood thought he'd put the result beyond doubt, but referee Russell Smith judged he was offside from the kick. One last gasp effort by Chris Smith could have tipped the tie Hull's way, but he was bundled into touch with the try line at his mercy. Leeds look forward to an 8th semi-final in 9 years. Robin Marks, BBC News.
In rugby union, Leicester have almost retained their Premiership title after a 12-9 win at 2nd place Northampton. All the points came from the boot, with Tim Stimson kicking Leicester's winner 5 minutes from time. Bob Champion, the jockey who overcame cancer to win the Grand National in 1981, has had a heart attack. Champion, who's 52, was admitted to Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge yesterday. He's said to be in a comfortable condition. And that's the sport. Sarah.
Thanks very much, Matt. Well, even the Queen Mother couldn't escape precautions against foot and mouth disease today. Along with other racegoers at Sandown Park in Surrey, she was disinfected. The racing went ahead despite the misgivings of the National Farmers Union.
There were no exceptions. Everyone at the racecourse had to be disinfected, regardless of age or status. But the Queen Mother volunteered to walk over the pad in front of the cameras. The rigorous procedures in place here also applied to her buggy, and the race authorities rejected any suggestion that the Queen Mother was courting controversy by supporting the sport during the foot and mouth outbreak.
I don't think that would be the case at all. The disinfectant precautions that are in place, as far as we're concerned, make it absolutely clear that it is safe to come racing and it's safe to stage a race meeting. So we're delighted that she is here today.
There was good reason for her to be delighted as well, when one of her two runners, Bella McRae, came in a winner.
And Bella McRae is storming up the hill for a royal win.
Oh, she's absolutely thrilled and delighted. She never expects to win a race. She didn't expect to win this one. So it's always a wonderful surprise.
It was the Queen Mother's 455th winner, and as well as the trophy, she picked up a cheque for nearly £4,500.
At nearly 101 and just 4 months after injuring herself in a fall, the Queen Mother proved today that her passion for racing is still strong enough to brave not only the weather, but potential controversy as well.
She made a final appearance to unveil a statue of one of her previous winners, Special Cargo, now a permanent tribute to her love of this sport. Jenny Bond, BBC News, Sandown Park.
The main news tonight, the government's chief vet has admitted surprise at how quickly foot and mouth has spread. That's the latest. There'll be news throughout the night over on BBC News 24. But from us, good night.
Agriculture Minister Nick Brown is Sir David Frost's guest for breakfast tomorrow from 9 here on BBC One.
I genuinely want to die, I've had enough.
A Young Offenders Institute with a reputation.
Violence, suicides, this utterly miserable, horrible establishment.
The inside story of Feltham.
We've just had an incident here. A young Kurdish lad decided that he would hang himself.
Juveniles in prison, it doesn't work. You would be foolish to even imagine it could.
Panorama, exposing the truth. Tomorrow at 10:15 on BBC One.
Good evening. Well, if I were you, I'd have my umbrella by the ready this week because it is going to be very unsettled. Today we saw nearly an inch of rain falling in just 24 hours at Capel Keurig, and that could be fairly typical for the rest of this week. Already we've got 4 rivers across England on flood warning, and I wouldn't be surprised with more rain to see those numbers increasing. The reason for the wet weather? Well, it's all down to areas of low pressure just waiting out there in the Atlantic to head their way towards us. And the low pressure is going to be with us right the way through the week. This is the high pressure down here to the south, and as you can see, it never gets even close to us. So low pressure will be with us. That means showers or longer spells of rain, and at times it will be rather windy right the way through until Friday. Now already the cloud and rain is beginning to work its way into the west. It will head its way eastwards through the night and right the way through tomorrow as well, getting up into the southeast of Scotland. Behind it we might even see some snow turning up across the Scottish Highlands. Temperatures tonight, though, as the cloud and rain works its way in, will be fairly mild, around 7 to 10 degrees, but in the northeast, nearer 3 to 4, giving a touch of ground frost. For tomorrow morning, then, it looks like starting wet across Northern Ireland, Northern England, Wales and Southern England. That rain heading eastwards by lunchtime and up into the southeast of Scotland by the afternoon. It will be a quite mild day, but certainly I think temperatures down a couple of degrees on what they were today, around 11 to 13. That's all from me for now. Bye-bye.
An unlikely team.
Inspector Lynley?
Yes?
Havers, Sergeant Havers.
With a mystery to solve.
What happened between William Tay and Ezra? He's not a killer.
He was leaving the farm to me.
Can I expect any more skeletons to come out of the cupboard?
The Inspector Lynley Mysteries. A new crime double begins this Monday at 8:30 on BBC One.
It's liquid and it's television.
Christopher's had them all on his sofa.
Biggity biggity badu bong.
You're doing it, put it on.
I wasn't just a sex symbol, I was funny as well.
I've seen him in porn. I'm shocked and slightly upset by that.
Are you talking about my stage act? Tell people to
You get seriously in trouble if you say that on live television.
Join Christopher Price for Liquid News, weeknights at 8:30 on BBC Choice. It's entertainment, it's digital.
He is the king. I love them all, and I'll love some more.
Football is back on television at the start of a year of renewed hope.
From a game on its last legs to a billion-pound industry. Who changed football? The players on the pitch?
Cantona coming to Manchester United was the start of our success rate.
Or the players off it?
Here was a sport that could drive an audience.
The backroom deals that led to football's renaissance, as told by the men who made it happen. The men who changed football, Tuesday at 9, BBC 2.
it's only TV, but I like it in 1 hour here on BBC One after we join Gary Lineker for Match of the Day.
Welcome to Match of the Day.
Good evening. FA Cup quarter-final weekend. 2 ties played today. We've got them both for you. Peter Taylor took a second division side to last season's quarter-finals. Today he faced one as manager of Leicester. On the opposition bench, Laurie Sanchez. The Wycombe manager knows all about cup upsets. Could he spring another surprise? Leicester City versus Wycombe Wanderers is our main game. Arsene Wenger won the Cup 3 years ago. 6 years before that, Graham Souness won it as Liverpool boss. Today his Blackburn side met Arsenal at Highbury. We'll also have highlights of the only Premiership game played today, Aston Villa against Ipswich.